but evil lurks in the hearts of men. The shadow knows.
What's up, everybody? This is Phil from Zaid Comics. Welcome, everybody in the chat. I see Chimera's here, screaming, "I am Bane." We got Matt Fowler in the chat. What's up? Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so thought I'd do something a little new here. Wanted to start streaming much more and kind of branching out in different interests, and thought we would do some little historical pieces talking about some pulp talk, and The Shadow is my favorite. So I hit up Graham Nolan to see if he would be willing to come on and talk, and he said, "Yeah." What's up, Graham? How's it going?
How are you, Phil?
Good.
Look what I got right here.
Oh, there we go. I think I have that one over here. Yeah, man. We'll talk about that. I mean, the Jim Steranko covers. Wow, what is that?
To Graham from Walter Gibson.
Holy crap, that's so cool, man. That is awesome. Well, let's talk about it, man. The Shadow was a huge character in the 30s and beyond. And the reason, the first time I probably realized it is one of my comic characters is heavily influenced by the 90s Shadow film, because I'm a kid in the 90s and I grew up on that. My dad showed me The Phantom with Billy Zane, The Shadow, Alec Baldwin, and I actually have a VHS tape where both of those movies are taped back to back on it. Because back in the day, we rent stuff from Blockbuster and then tape them onto a video. So that's how it was. And my character, the Silhouette, was influenced by The Shadow. And my grandfather saw the character and he's like, he knew all about The Shadow. And I feel like that character is one that transcended comics because he was such a big character even before he got into comics. And a lot of people may not even realize that now, but his pulp run, I think it's like something like 350 something pulps altogether, which are like novellas or small novels, originally printed in magazine form, which would be like this big, and was so popular it span out the radio show and launched Walter B. Gibson's career, who was writing under a pen name of Maxwell Grant at the time. And it was just huge, something that we probably can't even fathom. There's multiple movies and serials coming out of that character, and it's crazy because the man was a writing machine, and you actually got to meet him.
Yeah, he was probably in his 80s when I saw him. He was also he worked with Houdini. He was a magician,
right?
And when I saw him, he was at a convention in Orlando in 1977, and he was doing one of those rope tricks where you take the rope and you tie it and then you cut it, and then all of a sudden the rope is together again. So my brother and I are standing sort of kitty corner to the side there, and he goes through his trick, and I'm like, "Hey, look at that! He's palming the knot over here,
Yeah.
And I'm like, poor old guy, we're not gonna expose him or anything like that." And sure as shooting, he wanted us to see that, because when he does the trick, it completely, it just blows our mind. It's like, wait a minute, what happened to the? We're like, holy cow, the guy still had it.
No,
really
that's
cool.
awesome. Yeah, I'm a huge magic fan of magicians as well. So when I learned that, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like, this guy wrote the biographies on Houdini because he knew him. After his passing, he wrote these books. He worked with guys like the Great Blackstone, and he actually was a magic inventor. You come up with tricks, and like the instance you're talking about right there, that's like high level stuff where it's magic for magicians, where you're tricking the people that know what's going on. And that's just so fun. So this guy even put magic tricks and illusions into his pulp writing for to explain what villains were doing versus the Shadow and stuff. So super amazing high level stuff. And I recently got into the pulp, started reading them, and they're just from another time. They're so cool. They're very much written at a different pace than You would even see what the Shadow is portrayed to in the comics today. You know, having that big, basically the Shadow has this big network of agents that he works with, and he kind of is written like he is a good supervillain, like he's the mastermind, and he has all these henchmen that go out. And then when the shit hits the fan, the Shadow comes in and saves them, takes out the bad guy. So it's very unorthodox to what I'm used to reading in hero comics, and that's how like the pulp genre is. You know, this was a huge step for that genre. And if you look at his history in writing, I have an image here, which is like a world record holder where he's written so many words. You know, it's insane. And if you look it up, let's see, this piece says Walter B. Gibson wrote 2 Shadow novels a month for most of the 1930s. That's 24 per year. This was a tweet that came out from Razor Fist a few years ago. He said, in 1 month before and after that, 283 of the 336 Shadow novels in all. I believe he holds the world record for the most words written by one man about a single fictional subject to this day. So it's just amazing how prolific this guy was at writing and at a single character, you know?
What's interesting too is that the radio program came first. And then the pulp stories, and I never liked the radio program. You know, it's like, okay, it's a radio program, and it's about a guy who what's the saying? He does something to their minds. It's basically mind control.
Clouds men's
minds. That's it. And because he didn't carry the 45s, he didn't have the slouch brim hat, he didn't have the scarf over his face or anything like that. So there's no great visual to come out of the radio program. They were just, you know, typical little pot boiler mysteries. But when Walter Gibson took it over and started writing it for Street and Smith, you know, he brought that two-fisted Avenger to the forefront, and that's when the Shadow got interesting to me.
For sure.
When he was just shooting people, and you know, and he was never a warm and fuzzy guy. You know, you can't warm up to the Shadow like you can to Superman. You know, look up to him. The Shadow is just, he's sort of curt and almost mean-spirited to the people that work for him, you know, because they all came from someplace else. He gave them all a second chance. You know, they're all crooks and bums and alcoholics and all that kind of stuff, and he gave them a second chance. But you know, because he, you know, kills guys that are bad guys.
Right. I mean, he is I've heard an interview of Gibson say, you know, who the Shadow was kind of influenced off of. He said he wanted to make a character that was like a cross between Sherlock Holmes and Dracula. You know, Dracula is this evil bad guy, and Sherlock is this detective. And you have that, you know, you could see that there is this darkness inside the Shadow that he's forcing upon evildoers. And I love that aspect. We don't see that anywhere else really, where you have this heroic figure that at the core is using tactics of the bad guys. You know, he's using disguises, he's killing people, and he basically is a villain cloaked in white, you know, in that metaphorical, you know, white heroic goodness, but he is dressed like a bad guy. He's all in black, he's got the scarf and stuff like that. And you're right, the Shadow did star on the radio. He kind of was like at the beginning, like how the Crypt Keeper was an announcer to little vignettes.
Right,
so
right.
He would come up before the radio shows and be like, now, you know, let's see this. You know, and he had that tagline was from the beginning, you know, what either evil lurks in the hearts of man, the Shadow knows, and with that laugh. So, and then once Walter got the character, ran with it, made this huge just universe of characters and agents and villains, basically inventing the archetype of the supervillain, which would be a returning character like Shiva Khan, stuff like that. It just blew up from there.
Yeah, he was judge, jury, and executioner. So the Shadow was really, you sort of have to assume that he's right, because otherwise he's just a murderer. But because they give him that phrase that he knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men. So, he's able to discern and mete out justice.
Right. For sure. Let's see. We got some people in the chat. Phil's lying. His favorite is Thundercats Roar. That's not true, Camara. You're lying. We got a leg kick in the chat. Thanks for tuning in. Eric is also here. I appreciate it, guys. Hit that like button and subscribe. I did tweet this out, so if you guys are on Twitter, retweet it so we can get some more people in here. Who knows, if this goes well, maybe we'll do some more of these because they're kind of fun. I love this character. Kind of taking deep dives and seeing how the creators, what they were thinking while doing these characters. Alec Baldwin is so crazy that he's the perfect play for the Shadow. I thought his portrayal was pretty good. It was a fun movie, but it's in my heart because I grew up with that. What do you think about that film, Graham?
I hated it. The only scene that was worth a shit was the scene on the bridge.
So good, the intro, yeah.
Yeah, the rest of it was just nonsense. They didn't know what direction to go with. It was sort of a hot mess of a plot.
What about Tim Curry? Tim Curry was in there.
Yeah. So was Jonathan Winters.
That's true. Yeah. So this is something I wanted to bring up. Is it? Oh, it's this one. So this happened recently, and this is kind of one of the reasons I wanted to do a stream like this. The first issue of The Shadow sets a new world auction record. Now, The Shadow was published as a magazine back in 1931, and this broke the world record for pulp stories sold at auction, and it hit $156,000. And it wasn't even in great condition. It was at fine minus condition.
Well, for pulps, that's not bad.
Yeah.
You can't get anything much above that because the paper is just so brittle and it was just so cheap.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. The reason they call it pulps is because of the paper.
Yeah,
because it's on this uncoated, pulpy, almost like library book type paper. Because I would imagine it was cheaper to mass print this stuff.
Yeah, it's you would take the wood chippings or wood fibers and stuff and re-soak them and then mash them together to form this paper. It was inexpensive. It was cheap fiction. And the paper is filled with acid, so it browns over age and gets brittle, So
that's interesting. So this raised a bunch, and because it set off. Without this book, we wouldn't have a bunch of stuff. Because hopefully, if we do more episodes of this, we'll talk about the influences that this character and Gibson's writing had on just huge amount of superheroes and comic books and storytelling in the future and the modern day. But this was Gibson's big break. Before this, I believe he was a journalist. He did some investigative journalist stuff, and as well as magic writing and supernatural, kind of poltergeist, ghost-esque writing, and then hired on to do this. And I think they wanted a 2-part story, so he wrote them, and then they extended that to 4. And then by the time he knew what was going on, they were having him do 2 stories a month for 15 years. And that was his life. He was just writing all the time, coming up with new stories, and just leading to a huge prolific career.
Did he ever have an assistant write a story like Lester Dent did?
I don't think so. I know after he stopped, then they had other writers pick it up. In fact, later on, if we do more of these, I wanted to talk about how Bob Kane actually took some writing from a Shadow story called Partners in Peril, and it actually turned into the first appearance of Batman, where
the Chemical Syndicate.
Right. and right down to the images that were later on in the later Shadow stories. They did put illustrations in the book, and the early ones they didn't. And so the basic plot of it. So that story, Partners in Peril, was not even written by Gibson. It was written by later writers that took over the slot from the Shadow. So yeah, this is
was still writing it in 1939. No.
Yeah, I believe so. I think for 15 years he was writing.
Yeah, so he would have written that because the Detective Comics came out in 1939, so it had to have been based on a Gibson script.
All right. Yeah, well, definitely we'll dive into that in the future if we do this again. But these guys are just comparing these auctions to characters like Doc Savage, and you are, I assume, are a Doc Savage fan.
I'm a huge Doc Savage fan. In fact, I was never much of a Shadow fan. As far as the pulps go, it was Doc for me, and Bane is based on Doc Savage.
Yeah, you recently told me that. That's crazy. Yeah. Really cool.
He's the evil Doc Savage.
Very
super strong, super smart. He had his henchman. You know, Trog is based on Monk. Zombie was based on Ham. And Bird was based on just an amalgam of them. But all their names are based on rock bands from the 60s. The Trogs, the Birds, and
that's awesome. Yeah, Doc Savage, another huge influence on superheroes. They were the Man of Bronze, they call him, and yeah, he's another big one that I think they're trying to make into a film eventually. I know people were saying that Dwayne Johnson was gonna be someone that was gonna play Doc Savage, but
yeah, that's been kicked around for years. Schwarzenegger was attached to it at one point,
that would have been great.
And The Rock, and Shane Black was supposed to direct it, but nothing seems to be moving on it.
Let's see, Matt in the chat says Adrian Brody make a good Shadow if they made another movie. Yeah, I'd agree. That or the guy that played Kylo Ren from Star Wars. He's kind of has that look, but you know, he's got the big nose, and
yeah,
I think that'd be cool. Let's see, El Fancisto or Facinsto. I can't read. What's the comic in the thumbnail? So, in the thumbnail, I put two illustrations. One was Jim Steranko, who actually was good friends with Walter B. Gibson because they're both in the magic industry. Steranko, I actually, before I knew of his illustrations, I knew of him through magic. And awesome guy. I've emailed with him. He's such a cool cat, man. And his paintings are incredible. So I think in the late 70s, when they came out with these smaller pulps, Steranko did the covers, and I have so many of these just because the covers are amazing. You know, he's one of a kind guy, and being such so close to Gibson, I'm sure he was a huge fan of the Shadow. In fact, in the 80s, I believe, when DC wanted to do a Shadow comic, they went to Steranko, but Steranko turned it down because he knew that Bob Kane had taken so much for Batman from the Shadow, and DC never owned up to it. So I think he was supposed to be the illustrator on the Denny O'Neil stuff, which is a great run in my opinion. But they got Mike Kaluta, which is awesome artist as well.
Bernie Wrightson was actually slated first for that too.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Because the first house ad that was done was Wrightson.
Oh man, I've never seen that.
Yeah, and but Wrightson couldn't commit to it or something, and Mike Kaluta took it over.
Yeah, and there's been great artists. I think it's Howard Chaykin.
Howard.
Awesome run. I love the letters on this and the sound effects. So cool. Guys like Sienkiewicz worked on the Shadow for a while as well. Alex Ross does amazing covers, and we'll look at those. But one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is because now it's, I believe, the 90th anniversary this year of the creation of the character. And every so often, the owners of the character, who are Condé Nast now. A while ago, they bought it from Street and Smith. They revoked the licenses. The licenses ran out from like Dynamite and all the other holders of the character's licensing deals. And they kind of always put out new licenses to people and are trying to revamp the character to bring him back into pop culture to make money off the character. So this came out, I think, a couple years ago, last year, that James Patterson is revitalizing the character for the modern day. So James Patterson, of course, big novelist. His writing's been turned into a bunch of movies, and he is going to be bringing the character back in novel form. And he is slated, let's see, James Patterson, all-time master of the American thriller genre. The origins that began the genre with the shadow stories in the New York Golden Age. There's a natural creative match at work here, along with a significant through line. So it seems, let me see if I could find the quote here. He's basically bringing the character into the modern age. And there was them talking about launching the new series and touching on how the Shadow's origins and where the pulp started had a heavy yellow peril aspect to it. It says right here, some of the original mythology is steeped in the 1930s era yellow peril racism, which will need an update to pass the musters of today's climate. Fans can hope that Patterson, who knows better than just about any living author how to get readers to open their hearts and wallets, will find satisfying creative solutions to these challenges. So what do you think about that, Graham? Like the character, a lot of his villains were based around Chinatown, and that's a lot of the pulps. Even if you go back to Sherlock Holmes, that was the era of the enemies that you would find in those stories.
I think you could definitely tell those same stories. It's not like crime doesn't exist in Chinatown.
Sure.
It doesn't like, there's Tong societies. They have their own gangs of organized crime. I think the climate is so ridiculously judgmental that you can't even do that without people screaming the racist brand. And these corporations are acutely aware of that, and they just try to, avoid it. And I can't say I don't disagree with them for wanting to avoid it, but by the same token, I wish they would just kind of everybody stop kowtowing to being called racist by just telling a tale of fiction. It's one thing to have, let's say they were doing The Spirit, and you had Ebony in that. Okay, Ebony was clearly drawn from in that racist style of the Steppenfetchit black type characters. Certainly that's offensive, but for the Shadow to be fighting Asians in his battle against crime, it's not all he fought, but I don't see a reason why you would have to change that.
Right. And I think for a while, a few years ago, they were trying to come after Gibson for his writing, because it was very much of the times when, especially in the first pulp that he wrote, the main character runs into a limo driver, and he's an African-American guy, and he speaks of the times, I think, it's referred to as like pidgin dialect, where
pidgin English.
Yeah, and he writes it as if, you're hearing the guy speak it.
Yeah,
it's comical because
it's like cadence to it.
Right. It's almost comical because it's something we don't hear ever anymore. But it was of the times, and it's very much writing to, he's a writer that writes dialogue of how people speak, so they were trying to come after him for that. But if you look throughout the series, one of his agents, I can't think of the agent's name right now, but he's a African-American guy, and he's like his muscle. You know, he goes out there, he's the big, burly, badass that he goes out and fights crime for him. And that's something that back then you didn't really see. You know, he has this black guy that's on the Shadows team. He was part of his network of people.
Mm-hmm.
So he's, you know, pushed that stuff to the forefront in that way as well. And my worry about this is James Patterson thing, changing, you know, the character and not really living up to what Gibson has written into these stories and built such an empire from.
Well, if you take the mystery out and the slouch hat and all the accoutrements of the Shadow, what you end up is the Punisher. If you're going to bring him completely into the modern age and without any of these trappings that make the character unique, then he's just another vigilante like the Punisher.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Skip Edwards in the chat, breaking my balls. Congrats, Phil. Double digits, brah. Just talking about the viewers. I appreciate every viewer that's in here. We got Billy in the chat. What's up? Saying hi to Graham.
Hey, Billy.
Yeah, Billy's awesome. And we got Dan in the chat as well. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're talking about the Shadow and James Patterson taking over, penning the new stories that are going forward. Also, another thing that's in this article that James Patterson is quoted in saying that they are not only gearing up this kind of novel series, but he is working alongside with those novels into launching a film franchise based on it. So right there as well, you know, he's getting paid to write these stories in hopes to getting picked up by a production company, make these into films. I don't know how I feel about that because, you know, we see a lot of the times here in comics where writers come into, say, maybe an image book or something, writing a story that they only are doing it to get it on the big screen. You know, they see it as kind of a way to jump the track from comics into like a Netflix deal. So it kind of gives me, you know, feelings about that too. If you have the passion for a character and you're writing it for that character or for yourself in comics or novels or something, I think looking ahead too far could make you do some missteps in the medium you're working in currently. Yeah. Let's see. Kyle would be a great Shadow. Yeah. What's up, Hal Comics? Thanks for tuning in, man. Yeah, hit that like button, guys. So this is wanted to go back and show some awesome, you know, cover art. And this one as well is the Shadow, Blood, and Judgment. I believe this was the series that Chaykin did that actually took the Shadow into the modern age.
Yeah.
He was in modern day New York. So it's kind of already been done what James Patterson's trying to do with these novels. And
right.
Yeah.
And, yeah. In Howard's story, it was the same Shadow. It was Lamont Cranston, but his associates all aged.
Right.
You know, and then he had to pick up new ones. I forget how it was, something about Shangri-La or wherever he got his mystical training and powers from or something like that. But that was a good series. I really liked Howard's take on the Shadow.
Yeah. And so they're kind of doing a similar thing in that aspect. And of course, awesome. This is another DC book that he did. But just his covers are so cool. Very Art Deco style, 80s covers. Very awesome. So this, you know, we've seen those awesome covers and we'll look at some more, but I believe this is the new cover to the James Patterson book, Graham. Look at this. Yeah. No hat, no scarf, no guns.
No, GQ hairdo.
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, this could be an anything cover.
Yeah.
It's not the Shadow. It doesn't say the Shadow. They even blurred out New York City. You know, right. What are you trying to say with this? You know,
yeah, it's not this book right here, just based on the cover, is not for Shadow fans, right?
No.
It seems to me like it's like someone scrolling through Barnes and Noble you know, maybe a middle-aged housewife. I don't know, with the hairstyle, they're going to be into that. So this is, I guess, the official cover. Before this, I saw this version of the cover, which I was also mad about. I don't know if this was a mock-up or a preliminary cover.
That could be a Raymond Chandler cover. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't say the shadow. It doesn't say anything.
It's so weird, and it doesn't. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not making this for Shadow fans anymore. It's for, I guess, James Patterson fans.
Brian Sitz is doing the heavy lifting on this.
Yeah.
I guarantee you.
Yeah. So it's let's see, Matt Fowler says it's the silhouette. It does look more like my character, who's basically this Shadow Man. Yeah, the Shadow romance novel series. Yeah, sorry, Margot, for everything. So basically, it's what happens. It's basically the premise of Chaykin's book. And let's see, here's the description. You guys could pre-order it. I wouldn't advise it, but let's see. Only two people that know 1930s society man Lamont Cranston has a secret identity as the Shadow, a crusader for justice. One is his greatest love, Margot Lane, and the other is his fiercest enemy, Shua Khan. When Khan ambushes the couple, they must risk everything for the slimmest chance of survival in the future. A century and a half later, Lamont awakens in a world both unknown and disturbingly familiar. The first person he meets is Maddie Gomes, a teenager with his own mysterious secrets, including the knowledge of the legend of the Shadow. So now we're making this like a buddy. He's got to hang out with this little girl, teenager in modern age. She knows about the Shadow. He is the Shadow. Very hot.
And it does sound like it's ripping off Howard's thing, because it is the same Shadow, and for somehow he's either been put on ice or Captain America style or whatever, but now he comes back in the modern age. Sounds very much like Howard's.
50 Shades of Shadow I see in the chat over there.
Yeah.
Most disturbing, Khan's power continues to be felt over the city and its people. No one in this new world understands the dangers of stopping him better than Lamont Cranston, and only the Shadow knows that he's the one person who might succeed before more innocent lives are lost. Look at that. Yeah, I don't know what Condé Nast is doing. Obviously, they see James Patterson. He's this huge writer, and his name is going to sell some books. But to what audience? I mean, I guess James Patterson's audience. Yeah. And they have the money to dole out to James Patterson. They couldn't get someone like Alex Ross to do a cover for the novel. Like, even if you aren't into comics, this guy's work is so iconic, and everybody's seen his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So even something like this where he's not the Shadow, he's Lamont Cranston, and you got that Margot thing going on. So I don't know what they're thinking. We'll see what happens. They want to get a movie out of it, but if the movie is just a guy in a trench coat with no hat, no scarf, then what are they going to do with it? Oh, I don't know.
They'll call it Mike Hammer.
Yeah, let's see. The Shadow, he's got great hair, and he's lurking in the city to have his way with your wife. A new novel by James Patterson. That first cover is Ralph going to the movies. Where do they come up with this stuff? Yeah, so this is what's going on with the Shadow now, guys. The legacy of Walter B. Gibson turned into this stuff. And I think that they keep doing this and relicensing it because legally they have to have something in print to keep the copyright. I think that's how stuff works.
But that's going to be running out soon. It's going to become public domain
right
at a certain point.
Exactly. I think another 10 years or so, it'll be 100 years. and then the character we'll see what happens with that. It's going to be really interesting. But these little novels, like the one you have, are great. But recently, a company, what's this company called? I'm not sure, but they've re-released these original pulps with the original covers, and there's two of them in one. So you could get two stories, and it has the original illustrations in it as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, that was Anthony Tolan's company, who used to work in DC. Anthony is like the shadow historian.
Yeah, Sanctum Books is the company.
That's it. Yep, Sanctum. They did the same with Doc Savage.
Right. Yeah, they did Doc Savage stuff. You can see both the covers on the back, and you could get these off of their website still. I don't think they can't print them anymore, but they're awesome. They still have a bunch of them. You can find them on eBay. This is actually the first one, and they're kind of paired with other stories that are similar or have a historical value to one another. They have a great preface in there talking about the story and the creation of it. And in fact, let me see if I have the one. I bought one specifically because here it is. It had a very similar character in it to Two-Face.
Oh yeah.
So the face of Doom, and it's about a guy who I think kind of like molds his face into different disguises. And they talk about Bob Kane, the very similarity from this character to Two-Face, and how people are saying like Two-Face. He would say Two-Face is based on the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde poster. But yeah, it's really cool to see. So I bought this one specifically. Yeah,
that one looks irrefutable. I mean, it's even got the green side of his face. Is how they used to color Two-Face.
Right, and so it's really cool to see how many influences the Shadow has was put upon other characters and stuff like that. It's like if we could talk about that in Batman all day. Like I read the second pulp, and Gibson is describing the Shadow as a giant bat, like his cape and like bat wings, and it's really crazy to think that this Batman is just such a huge character, and took a lot of influence from that. But I mean, you look at guys like Doc Savage and the similarities between Doc Savage and Superman, Man of Steel, Man of Bronze,
Fortress of Solitude, Clark Savage, Clark Kent.
Yeah. It's crazy. Let's see. Why don't they just let these franchises die? Stop digging up corpses and violating them. I mean, that would be better, but still there's, I think Sanctum Books did a great job of keeping the stories alive by reprinting these pulps and stuff, how they were supposed to be put out. But, I'm sure there's more stories people could tell with these characters, but in my opinion, you got to stay true to what the fans love and how these characters were built. And you've done some kind of pulp character work, haven't you? I remember you're showing some Phantom stuff off.
Yeah. I drew the Phantom for King Features Syndicate for 6 years. Awesome. And then I did one of my first jobs was at Eclipse Comics doing a character called the Prowler, who was very much like the Shadow with the big slouch hat and stuff. And those stories took place in the 1940s.
Let me look that guy up. That sounds awesome. The Prowler.
Let's see if I got a...
Oh, yeah, Eclipse. Is this the guy?
Yeah.
Tommy gun. God, Tommy guns are just so cool. Really awesome. Yeah, I mean, and from that, even the Shadow influencing other pulp characters like the Spider was a big one. Dynamite, did a whole series called The Masks, which was like all of them. Alex Ross did the first issue of it. You know, Green Hornet, Shadow, the Spider, all kinds of characters. It was a kind of fun run, and just the covers alone are just so cool. Just love that stuff.
Yeah, here's let me see if I can share this to you.
Everybody likes Doc Savage.
Here we go.
Oh wow, that's just such a cool layout too, man. That is cool. When did you work on this?
It was 1985 or 86.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love that over the city, very much so like the first DC issue of The Shadow, where he's standing above like the train.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge, very metaphorical panel.
Yeah, it's German expressionism.
Oh, it's so cool, dude. Yeah, I actually, let me see. I have, I did something similar to that in my Lost Pages story. Has a character in it called The Masquerade. And if I could actually pull up the pages here, he is very much like a pulp hero. He's based in the 1930s and in 1930 Chicago. And I told my artist, who is in the chat here, Alan Alonso, aka the Howl Comics, he did all the art for The Masquerade. And I sent him a reference. I'm like, I want something very much like the Shadows intro to here.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so iconic. It's just everything I love about that pulp style. And open up the PDF. So I don't know if you've seen this, Graham, but we're actually going to be bringing them back for the next Lost Pages book, which will be launching at the end of the summer.
Cool.
And then I really want to do a solo book for the character, because people, you know, you don't really see that pulp aspect anymore. It's kind of fallen to the wayside. But I think it's something that's super original, and because you don't see it as much, I think people kind of dig that. They think it's something like new, you know, even though it's so retro. But here's the intro page to The Masquerade.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Alan killed it on this. So The Masquerade's so fun. Based in Chicago, and he's kind of a master of disguise. He could take the form of anyone. He has a theater background. You know, by day he's a theater actor. And the cool thing about him is when he's fighting crime, he speaks only in iambic pentameter, like Shakespeare talk. So he kind of mocks his enemies and stuff. So
cool.
Super fun. But yeah, if you guys love pulp characters, definitely check out the Lost Pages. It's still in demand. We ship out the next day, so you guys could go up there and grab that. I think they'll put the link in the description below. And as well, for the Lost Pages 2 has a mailing list up right now. You guys could sign up for that. But Graham, I threw your link down in the description too for Alien Alamo. How is that doing, man?
Great. Yeah, it's doing very well. Yeah, we're at I haven't looked at it today, somewhere around 85, 86,000.
That is insane, dude. That's so cool. Congrats, man. Yeah, I'm gonna pull that up right now. Alien Alamo, 85,000 with almost 1,300 backers. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Man, this is great. Why don't you do a little pitch for the people that haven't heard?
Sure. Yeah, this well, the first book I did was called The Chenoo, and that was a horror tale about a monster out of Native American past. Mm-hmm. And all of my Compass Comics comics are going to be interconnected in the same universe, which is going to be horror, sci-fi, and the supernatural. No capes and cowls in this universe right now. So the second book is this one here, Alien Alamo. And this one is set in 1957. And it's the story of a father and son. The father is sort of damaged goods from his experiences in the Pacific in World War II. And he can't relate to his son. He's having a hard time opening up to his kid until a war is brought to his doorstep. That's the metaphor for the Alamo. That's the name of their ranch. And they come under attack by this alien invasion, which is like these insects. I base them on stink bugs because we get an invasion of them every September here in Western New York. And so it's about the father and the son and their friends defending the ranch, defending their lives, and building their relationship back up. It's a really cool adventure tale with a lot of heart.
Wow, it's awesome. I love seeing the sketches and stuff like this. Are you going to put any of that in the book? Like the concepts?
Yeah. Depending on what my page count ends up being, I'll probably stick that stuff in there.
That's so fun. This guy totally reminds me of Sam Elliott.
Yeah, that's who he's based on.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I love him. Yeah, I love the Western feel. I'm a huge Western fan. I love watching your streams on Westerns on your own channel. So if you guys haven't checked out Graham's channel, definitely go over there and sub to that. It's a big book, man. Happy for you, and can't wait to see this out in people's hands. If you guys are in the chat and have not backed it yet, the link is in the description below.
Back Alien Alamo, guys. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. I guarantee you that. People are loving those keychains, those cartridge keychains. Yeah, those are 30-30 Winchester 30-30 bullets. Yeah, that's great. And it's got the Alien Alamo etched on them. They're really cool. And then the box will be signed too. You know, you'll get cool. My autograph on the box. Nice. We got Art T. Bear in the chat. What's up, Art? Hey, Art. Another Art, we're just professionals. Yeah, that's tomorrow, right? Professionals, yeah. No, tomorrow is the Storytellers on my channel, and then the Professionals is Thursday. Right. Who's got the Professionals this week? Let's see. We had to skip somebody. I had to do Art's last week because he couldn't do it. So I think it's either Art or Billy. All right, cool. Billy Tucci. Oh no, Art says it's him. Oh, it's Art? All right, sub to Art, guys, so you guys don't miss the Professionals. Yeah, if you guys are just tuning in, we're about to wrap it up, but we were just talking about the Shadow and what's going on with him now. James Patterson's taken over the character, going to be writing and kind of trying to make it into a film series. Doesn't seem like it's sticking to the original aspect of the character. Very changed a lot, and it doesn't even have a hat on the cover, as you can see here. It's kind of whack. But I wanted to talk about, Walter B. Gibson, how prolific of a writer he was, and just making this legendary character that influenced so many other heroes, so many comics. Did you know he actually wrote some of the early Shadow story when they made him into comics? And they changed his look for the comics too. Have you ever seen those really first issues where he's like in a yellow spandex outfit? Yeah. Street and Smith published that. They had their own line of comics. They did Doc Savage and they did the Shadow, and they changed Doc too. They gave him some type of Egyptian, not helmet, but it looked like a hood, and I think it had like a stone that did magic or something. It's completely not Doc Savage. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Oh my God, I'm trying to find an image for the audience here. It was a green outfit. I can't even find it because it's all the good Shadow. The internet's embarrassed to show us what they made the Shadow look like. Oh, it's so bad. But yeah, I never saw that Doc Savage rework with the helmet. That is weird. Yeah, I think they were just like, oh, this is comic books, so it should be superheroes, and we got to change these characters to look like superheroes. But then they came back strong with some good miniseries for the Shadow. Who knows? Or does the Shadow knows? Let's see. Yeah, Graham, I don't know. That's I guess all I have to talk about this time. It was
a fun time, though. I appreciate you coming on. I hope people in the
no
chat
problem.
enjoyed it.
Not at all.
Yeah, it was good stuff. So, guys, if you guys are interested, definitely go back Alien Alamo and sign up for the new Lost Pages 2, which has a mailing list right now. I'll pull it up right here, and we will be launching after we send out all of our Magic Cop 2 books. The Silhouette is going to be the focal point of this Lost Pages book. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you guys like characters that are similar to the Shadow, that pulp aspect, that supernatural vigilante that is cutthroat, he's going to tear those criminals down. The Silhouette is your guy. He's basically my version of that extreme vigilante. The interesting aspect about him is he doesn't remember his past. He's basically a specter, and he's at the same time he's fighting justice, he's always wondering about who he was. So we're going to get a glimpse into that in this story. We're going to see characters that you know and love from the first book, like Crimstone, like the Masquerade, who I just showed off. So you're going to see those guys, but this is going to be a big book. It's going to be around 72 pages.
Wow.
It's going to be mostly black and white with red for blood. So if you loved the Silhouette in the first one, you'll love them in this. I'll actually scroll up to where the Silhouette is. Graham, we did a poll with our backers because the Lost Pages was kind of a interesting book where it was almost like an anthology. It had vignettes of these different heroes in my universe. Similarly, how you're doing this connected universe between your books, this is kind of a book with a big universe introducing heroes. And the Silhouette, off of that poll, he was the top at the list. So we're kind of focusing up on him and this character for the main portion of the book. And we might do an Ashcan with another couple characters, but he's just dark, really wanted to hit on that Sin City aspect, that grimy. He sees the world in black and white. So you're either an innocent person or you're a bad guy, and you either don't need help at all because you chose your path and life is going to take you down it, or you need to be put down. So this is the story of the Silhouette. So everybody, please sign up. It's going to be a hell of a ride.
Hey, I found the Doc Savage comic. If you share the screen.
Oh, yeah. Let's see this. Oh, what is that? Oh, my God.
He's got these like spandex pants, too, and this hood thing. And there's a stone. You can see rays coming out of the I don't know what the hell is going on there.
Oh, my God. I got to find. Oh, what is that? The Shadow comic. Trying to find this here. We got some awesome Mike Kaluta. I actually have this one. Cecil actually sent me a couple old Shadow comics. We got our boy. This is Kenneth Rocafort's cover for the Shadow. Great stuff.
Where is that? I don't see it.
Oh, I'm not sharing it. That's my bad. Let's see here. Kenneth Rocafort did this.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful for Dynamite. Really cool. I love how he does smoke. Very awesome. And then this one was the
I love Kaluta. I love his Shadow.
Yeah, and he just he kept coming back to the character and just upping his art too. This is some of the first stuff he did for the Shadow, and it's just great. And I think he penned his own he wrote a story as well. You could really tell he has a really big love. I think it was this was Denny O'Neil. Yeah, they were a good team. Oh, this story was so cool. The ending.
That's my first Shadow comic.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love this one because if I'm not mistaken, the ending is the bad guy is charging at the Shadow and he jumps him. And it was the Shadow's clothes in a coat hanger, and he flies through the window at the end and dies. He jumps out the window.
And he was the guy was a friend of Lamont Cranston's, from the nightclub, days or whatever.
Yeah. I have this one too. This one's great. Cecil sent me that one.
Nice.
Really good detective stuff. So I've been researching, the old pulps and things. So when I do write the Masquerade story, where it's this focused story, that it's going to be like the first mystery that I've ever written, and I have it plotted out. So I'm super excited for that.
Excellent.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. But yeah, guys, I appreciate you all tuning in. Hit that sub button. We're close to 800 subs. And Graham, maybe we'll do this another time. Talk about some stuff like this. It's been a blast. I really appreciate you coming on and spending some time.
No worries. And thanks for having me on, Phil. Appreciate it.
No problem. All right, everybody. You guys have a great rest of your week.